Morning. So, Jussie Smollet is free and no longer in prison. And good for him. Why? I don't understand. But yeah, he's free to go despite being convicted. So, hey, there you go, right? Jussie Smollet lied. Lied repeatedly. And is an unrepentant liar, and damaged the credibility of people who actually are legitimately the victims of hate crimes with his public lying about being a victim of something like that. So he deserves to have some kind of consequences for his actions. And the fact that he continues to be unrepentant and is now being rewarded for his misbehavior, I think is pretty appalling. It reminds me of, so in Oregon, your car insurance, you're required to have it, yes. But lying to the police about your insurance status is actually a crime. It's one of the few situations where just lying in general is actually criminal, right? I mean, you can lie with the intent to like deceive or defraud for like some kind of financial gain, right? It's more a flavor of like theft, right? Rather than just lying, misrepresenting who you are or what you have, right? Because, insurance is required in case you wreck your car and injure somebody or destroy their property, right? It's expensive and want to make sure that you are able to compensate somebody for, their medical bills or replacement costs of their property, right? So if you lie about your insurance status, it's a crime. Now, in the 10 or so years I've been doing this, I've arrested somebody for that crime exactly once. And it took work to get there. So typically on a traffic stop, you ask, license, registration, proof of insurance, and oftentimes people have an old insurance card or, they're fumbling with their phone, trying to pull it up on their app or whatever, or for one reason or another, they don't have current proof of insurance, right? And insurance companies, it's kind of hit and miss about how frequently they send updated information to DMV, and so the status of your insurance as far as we can pull up in our database is kind of hit and miss, right? So I'll have that conversation with people, if they don't have current proof. So I'm like, hey, just to let you know, in Oregon, it's actually a crime to lie about your insurance status. Bearing that in mind, do you have valid insurance? And if the answer is yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if I call your insurance company, they're going to tell me it's current. I'm not going to have to arrest you for lying about your insurance status. No, absolutely not. Fair enough. And if that's the answer, oftentimes I'll just take it as face value. Or people say, well, I think it's paid up. I'm not sure. Okay, now we're not lying anymore, right? We're hedging. Oh, okay, all right. And in which case, you come clean enough for me to all right, well, I am going to give you a warning about your insurance, but you can't move the car until you get your insurance, so go pull up, whatever your app is or whoever you get your insurance from, make a payment, make sure you're all current before you roll out and you got current proof of insurance. No problem. Great. And if you don't have insurance, you get stopped again, your car is subject to tow. So if you don't want to lose your car, maybe you make sure you get that done. Be an adult, do the right thing. Fine. So the one time it didn't go this way, it was something like this. So DMV actually did have, something fairly recent from this person's insurance company, and this is terminated, right? So, and there's a date of termination, right? So you could see, right, as far as DMV was concerned, fairly recent information, insurance no longer valid on this vehicle, right? And it's not just personal liability insurance, like the vehicle itself has to be insured. And so I asked the driver, same thing, hey, bearing that in mind, that it's a crime to lie about your insurance status, do you have insurance on this vehicle? Oh, yes, absolutely. I have insurance on this car. Okay, because it says on my computer, according to your, insurance company, this was terminated like, a couple weeks ago or something like that. It's like, oh, no. I made payments. It's all good. I have insurance. Okay. I'm going to call them and ask, right? Because that's the thing. Like, every insurance company, like, they got a 24-hour claims number, so you can call anytime with any legitimate insurance company and verify coverage, right? So I tell her, I'm like, I'm going to call. So you're sure you have insurance? I'm like, yes, definitely. I have insurance. It's all paid up. Like, there's some kind of mistake. Okay, I'm going to call now. I call. And the insurance was like, nope, this is definitely terminated. There's no coverage on this car. Okay, so I'll go back. Are you sure? Oh, yes. Okay, because they just told me you don't. So as far as I can tell, you don't. It's like, no, there's some mistake. I can get this cleared up. I made payment arrangements. Those were the words. Payment arrangements. What you made. That's what she told me, right? Okay. So here's what we're gonna do, right? I'll follow up with you tomorrow, right? Find out where she works. Get a phone number. You were gonna call me when you have proof of the payment arrangements you made and how this is all a big misunderstanding, and we'll be done with this. Oh, yes, absolutely. Okay, all right. Tomorrow rolls around. She flakes out, right? She never calls. So I go to her work, right? And, hey, what gives? And she's like, well, I paid for my insurance after we were contacted yesterday. I'm sorry. It's like, yeah, I went on the website, I made the payment, and now I have insurance. No, that's not how this works. No. You can't retroactively pay your insurance and have, it go backwards in time to the point where you were actually operating your vehicle and be covered. That's not how insurance works, right? You don't get to buy it after you have an accident, right? So you lied, right? Not just once, but repeatedly. Even after it was pointed out that it was an obvious lie. And you continued to lie. You compounded your lie to try and cover your previous lie. So I arrested her for lying about her insurance status. The one time ever, right? It's the dumbest thing to be arrested for, but she did. Okay? And so I lodged her in the jail on this charge. And, she bails out or whatever, shortly thereafter. A week goes by and I get a letter from the DA. And usually when you get a letter from the DA, that means they're not going forward with a case that you arrested somebody on, right? They're declining to pursue charges. Like, all right, well, let's see what they have to say. And basically the gist of this letter says, hey, this was a good arrest. I believe you have probable cause, and this is something we can prosecute. But due to, and I believe the words, they were the de minimis nature of the violation, which is basically Latin for small potatoes, right? Insignificant, not important. Due to the de minimis nature of the violation, we consider the arrest and booking sufficient sanction, right? Or in plain English, this isn't a big deal. Yes, it's a crime, but she got her butt thrown in jail overnight, and now she's out, and that's probably good enough. Hopefully she learned her lesson, right? Okay. So, bring this full circle to Mr. Jussie Smollet. Is this de minimis in nature, right? No. Okay? He lied. He compounded his lie, but what damage did he do to the discourse in this country, right? And what damage did he do to, again, the people who legitimately have been victims of hate crimes. Like, I've investigated and arrested people for committing hate crimes. They are a real thing. They do occur. This did not happen to Jussie Smollet. He lied to further his own aims and then continued to lie to cover his tracks and continues to be an unrepentant liar. And now he is free. Where's the justice in this? And the galling thing is how tribal it is, right? And how there's a certain segment of society who, for, political reasons, see this as a win. And that based, by no other criteria than the color of his skin, you should get different treatment, preferential treatment, in the justice system to balance the scales in some bizarre equity calculation, and negate some past prejudicial treatment, right? And it kind of goes back to the infamous quote by Ibram X. Kendi, right? Which says something to, and I guess this is not an exact quote, but something to the effect of, the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. And I think that's precisely what we're seeing here, right? And that it doesn't matter that he's convicted in a court of law and that he has been, had the sentencing completed, right? They're just, they're releasing him, right? And ultimately, I think that's the calculation, right? Is there some perceived historical injustice that is somehow being counteracted or amended by a now present day injustice? And I mean, it literally is injustice. It is the opposite of justice. We have a process. The rules should apply equally to everyone. And he's getting preferential treatment based primarily on his immutable characteristics. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen. But that's what we're doing. And the thing about Ibram X. Kendi, right? If past discrimination can only be remedied by present discrimination, if present discrimination can only be remedied by future discrimination, if you're discriminating in the future and the future becomes your present, it will then require future discrimination to remedy the new present discrimination, right? I mean, literally the way he phrases it, you are in a perpetual state of trying to right the wrongs of prejudicial treatment through additional prejudicial treatment. It makes no sense. And it leads to bizarro clown world outcomes like this. And if we continue down this path, we will only continue to see more of this, such as it is. Now, is this the end of the world? No. But, drip drop, right? Another grain of sand on the heap. And the integrity and the faith in the system erodes just a little bit more, right? And so ultimately, what credibility will the justice system have going forward? Now, I mean, that isn't to say the justice system was this, flawless beacon for all time. And certainly, it is a flawed system. And this is not the first incident to highlight the flaws in the system. But I think it is fundamentally different in character, qualitatively different in character than maybe some past examples of maybe unfair sentencing or, preferential treatment based on other criteria, and none of that is okay. But I mean, that's exactly what the problem is with Kendian thinking on prejudicial treatment, right? Two wrongs don't make a right. And yet, some of the loudest voices in the room are arguing for precisely that. And I think that's the qualitative difference, right? It is no longer a problem that things are unequal. Unequal is a feature, not a bug. Unequal is intentional to try and fix previous unequal and, like I said, balance some sort of bizarre equity calculation. It's wrong. Shouldn't happen. It's not how justice works. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. It's been fun. Positive and uplifting as always. See you on the next one.